Alone in the Dark is back. After a 15-year absence, and yes, I'm aware of the terrible co-op shooter from 2015, that's part of the absence, the literal first name in survival horror has returned. The third game in the series, to be simply titled Alone in the Dark, this one is functioning as something of a reboot, as it takes the action back to Louisiana in the 1920s, exactly when and where the original was set. It seems to be aspiring to be something more than a simple reboot, though, as this line of dialogue from Emily Hartwood, played here by prominent actress Jodie Comer, lays out an interesting connection to the Infogrames classic.
Last night I dreamt that my uncle hung himself in the attic, that we were too late. The house looked different, but it was still called Derceto.
Definitely a weird place. Feels like I've been here before, I just can't think why.
That, of course, is a reference to the original game, in which Jeremy Hartwood hanged himself in the attic of Derceto, the family estate, the inciting incident that drew private investigator Edward Carnby and Jeremy's niece Emily into the investigation that makes up the plot of the first game. So what does it mean that this new Edward and Emily remember the events of the original game? Will this game's investigation cross decades and dimensions? Only time will tell, but it's an intriguing possibility. One thing's for sure, though. The game is going to be offering a greatly expanded narrative. While they're still investigating the Derceto estate, this time it's an asylum for the deranged, full of characters to interact with and mysteries to solve. Where last time there was no meaningful difference when playing as Emily or Edward, this time the developers promise that the NPCs will react very differently depending on which character the player chooses to portray, leading to a meaningfully different experience. Is that marketing hype, or is Alone in the Dark planning to be the new Resident Evil 2, since Capcom's Resident Evil 2 had no interest in doing that? The gameplay certainly has the look of a Resident Evil-inspired modern third-person horror shooter, with the static cameras gone the way of the pre-rendered backgrounds. If the preview is to be believed, the estate will be absolutely crawling with slimy, malformed beasts that have to be blasted back to whatever dimension they crawled out of. This mixture of intense gunplay and conversation-focused investigation recalls Frogware's ill-fated The Sinking City, albeit with a much smaller map and tighter focus. The thing I'm most excited about, however, is the obvious passion that the developers appear to have for the source material. Not only are they embracing the game's overall genre, hard-boiled detective meets Lovecraftian horror, there's nods to the rest of the franchise, most notably the appearance of Grace Saunders, the kidnapping victim from Alone in the Dark 2, as a key figure in the story. Grace is most famous for having been the star of Jack in the Dark, a non-canonical playable teaser for Alone in the Dark 2, in which she had to escape a sinister Jack-in-the-Box in a toy store. The developers are keeping this tradition alive by making Grace the playable star of the game's demo, which is available now. While nothing in the preview suggests that Alone in the Dark is looking to break any new ground, at least not to the extent that 2008's Alone in the Dark's revolutionary fire and crafting mechanics innovated, all of the available footage suggests a dedication to providing an eerie and intense horror experience that lives up to the series' name. There's every reason to be very excited for Alone in the Dark's release this Halloween. The thing I'm most excited about? DLC that lets you play with the original character models. From way back when there was a hard 100 triangle limit to how complicated a model could be. See you back here for more Alone in the Dark, but until then I'm going to leave you with the best moments from the footage reel that came with the game's press kit.
They're so